Is that right?
Yeah.
You have to wait 24 hours?
Yeah, because it's
This is a heavily regulated industry, isn't it?
Very much, by the Federal Trade Commission. I mean, everything is on paper. I mean, and it has to go through the state, and everything's watched over very carefully. Just like with money for pre-needs. If a person comes in and wants to pay in advance for their funeral and save costs, which is an excellent way for people to do.
Folks do that often?
Very much. Very, very much.
And do you recommend it? I mean, let's say you weren't in the funeral industry. Is that something you'd recommend? Is that something you did, or you've encouraged family members to do on their own?
Yes. I mean, we have that taken care of with my parents. You know, of course, I have insurance to something that was happening to me or my family, but it's pre-need is an excellent way to do, because you go today and you buy the service, you pick out whatever you want, and by that way, you can save money, because a lot of people does not want to put so much money into.
Right. You lock down the price now.
You lock down the price, and so you live 20 years. That funeral home that you choose will still do the service for that price.
Is that right?
Yes.
That's tremendous.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. Is that a pretty reasonable? I mean, it's definitely something you encourage, but is it a pretty? The costs associated with funerals can be substantial.
That's right, and that's one of the reasons that you need to pre-need.
Right.
Because you can save money by doing it. And hey, I remember. Like I say, I've been doing this a long time, but I remember when solid copper caskets. Which is the premium of caskets. Right. I remember when, you could get that service for $2,400. And now that solid copper casket and services would cost you $10,000, $12,000.
Is that right? That's amazing,
Yeah.
Rick. When you think about those. And obviously a lot of folks can't afford something like that. Direct cremation surely comes into play, or a much smaller, but still a traditional service.
That's right. Yeah. It's pre-need is the best thing that family can do, and especially just like if your family is out of town,
right?
And people move down here to retire, and get the pre-need done, get all that taken care of, and then if something happens to mom or dad or uncle, aunt, or whoever, then everything is taken care of right then. So, and then all it is a telephone call. Takes care of everything.
Who contacts the funeral home or cemetery in another area, Rick? Let's say, who goes about and contacts those?
All right. Now, if, like when there's a death, I took a person up to Washington, D.C., and buried him up there in the National Cemetery last year. Now, if it's a national cemetery like that, we call from here and make all the arrangements.
Right.
Now, if it's a small country cemetery, we have to call and get a funeral director or somebody like that there to take care of it for us. Now, me being a licensed funeral director, I'm licensed in Kentucky and Tennessee and South Carolina.
3 states,
Kentucky,
states. Tennessee, and South Carolina.
Yeah, and I'm getting ready to write my board in North Carolina.
Great.
So I'll have my license there also in case I have an interment that needs to go to North Carolina. I can go up there and take care of it.
That's tremendous.
But me being a licensed funeral director in Embalmer, if we're going to a national cemetery, I don't have to get a funeral director in that area. Because in national cemeteries, I'm licensed to where I can go anywhere in the United States and bury in a national cemetery.
That's tremendous.
But if I go to a country cemetery, a privately owned cemetery, or something in another state, I have to get a funeral director that's licensed in that state to have the interment.
Right.
So, but national cemetery, I don't have to do anything.
But if you're licensed in a state, you could, let's say in South Carolina, you could perform a funeral in any of the 46 counties. Or in North Carolina, any of the 100 counties in that state.
That's right.
That's tremendous. So you're not just licensed for a small area, let's say Owe Georgetown or Owe Georgetown Marion. You're licensed to perform funerals anywhere in the state.
That's right. And see, there's two types of license. There's a licensed funeral director or a licensed funeral director and embalmer. You can't be an embalmer without being a funeral director. But you can be a funeral director without being an embalmer.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Why would someone become a funeral director and not know how to embalm?
To work funerals, they work up in the front of the funeral home. They don't work in the back, and they don't do anything with the preparation of the body whatsoever. And they just sell funerals, work funerals, stuff like that. Meet families and do pre-needs and all that kind of stuff.
Embalming's a big a big deal. And do all bodies have to be embalmed before they are, for instance, in the shipping instance? Do they all have to be embalmed before they're shipped to New Jersey or back to Kentucky?
Generally every time they are. I've been down here since 2001, since 2002, working in the funeral business.
Right.
And I saw one that was shipped overseas that was not embalmed.
That was not embalmed.
Not embalmed,
Boy.
but they had it. We got the person ready and out of here within just very few hours on a plane.
After the approvals had taken place and after the 24-hour waiting period, etc.
No, we didn't have to wait 24 hours on this. So we got this ready and done it. The 24-hour waiting period is on cremation.
Oh, on cremation, yes, yes. I see.
But, I saw one shipped out like that that went overseas.
And if someone dies here and or if someone dies and a loved one here has to get on an emergency flight to get back, how does someone, is there a tie-in they would, if they communicate with a funeral director, how would they go on about it? Isn't there a reduced,
the funeral director can,
reduced price possibly involved with flying?
A funeral director, it's a bereavement rate. A funeral director can get a hold of the airlines, and then the airlines turns around and they have a certain section people that deals with that strictly,
right.
And they call you back and they get all the death information and everything like that. So they can get a lot less expensive rate. It's not cheap because it's an immediate thing to do, but they can help a lot with that. Funeral director can. Yeah.
In the actual shipping itself of a loved one from here to another area, Rick, just how does that, you mean putting a body on a plane, or how do you all go about working to make sure that this body is handled properly between here and Pine Knot, for instance?
We put all right, just take, if a person was going to Pine Knot, Kentucky from here, we could take the person and put them in a casket and put them in a shipping container thing, and we take them down here to the airport cargo, and they'll load the body on the plane, the cargo part will. And from here, they would fly to Lexington, Kentucky. And then when they land up there, the funeral director up there would go up there to the airport and meet the plane and bring the body back in the hearse.
Does this happen often, Rick?
A very lot. Very, very lot. Yeah. Yeah. In this area, because it's such a big retirement area.
Right. And
people moving down here and dying, then going back home to be buried.
So they almost always plan on being buried in the community they...
Normally, yeah. Yeah.
They grew up in.
And if they're not, and if they don't do that, a lot of people are, like, say, opting for cremation.
Right.
Because, they don't want to be buried here.
And cremation is a popular alternative to a traditional...
Very much. Real. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, very, very much. I don't know the exact percentage, and I talked to a man with Batesville Casket the other day, and I can't remember what he said the percentage was, but it seems like it's like 40% or something right here in the beach
Grand
area.
Strand, right?
Yeah. Now it's different when you get to Conway.
Right.
You don't have the cremation rate over there, but when you cross the waterway and you get over here, a lot of cremations.
That's fascinating.
Alan Lee has a crematory, Steve McMillan has a crematory, and Goldfinch at the beach has a crematory.
Absolutely. All great operators, all doing their jobs and their commitment to families and to loved ones. Rick, what is it about the funeral home and the funeral industry that really makes you tick? What is it that keeps you driving and focused on these families?
Serving families. Because taking care of someone. They've lost the most precious thing they have. And they have to have somebody to depend on that knows what they're doing. And by taking care of that family and giving them doing the wishes and whatever they want and making sure that their loved one's taken care of and giving a good life-like appearance and all that. And it's real satisfying, it's real rewarding for when a family comes in and just, says, thank you, we appreciate what you've done for our dad. That means the world.
When we think about that later this week on Friday, we're going to have Myrtle Beach's city manager with us. I was thinking about, in trying to prep for his interview later this week, Thinking about the city of Myrtle Beach's motto, its mission, first in service. And serving families is truly, if you're first in that role, you're going to be first in many other things. If you first focus on that family going through such a tough time.
Our motto at my funeral home, I owned my own funeral home in Kentucky for 18 years.
Is that right?
And our motto there was, our family serving your family.
That's a good one. Our family serving your family.
Yeah.
That's a good one for a family-owned operation. It's important to highlight that family component and serving other families.
Yeah, Palmetto Funeral Home uses it now. When I was over there...
Palmetto Funeral Home uses our family serving your family?
When I was over there, we started advertising with that, and Barry Watson and Joe Watson that owns the funeral home, they kept it.
Yeah.
So they're using that now.
They should have. That's a great slogan. Have any of your family gotten involved in the funeral home business since you
my son Aaron
sold your location in Pine Knot and moved down here?
My son Aaron, he's a licensed funeral director.
Is that right?
Yeah, now he has his construction company here, but he's a licensed funeral director.
In South Carolina or in Kentucky?
In Kentucky.
In Kentucky, yes. Yeah. Is it pretty easy to become licensed in another state? Is there pretty common practices in all 50 states, or are there stark differences?
It's tough to get your license.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, you go to be an embalmer, you have to go take a test. To be a funeral director, you have to take a test.
Right.
You have to take a state test. And I'm telling you, that's not an easy course to take. I mean, you know, like in mortuary school, you have embalming, you have macrobiology, history, English, law, business law, anatomy, restorative art. A lot of different subjects you got to cover. A lot.
That does sound very difficult.
Yeah.
Sure glad I'm not going through that. Probably couldn't get through what's interesting, macro and microbiology. Rick, thanks so much for being with us this morning. I'm sorry we've run out of time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Stay tuned to more Carolina people with licensed funeral director and embalmer Rick Neal coming up next. 25 minutes of Rick Neal sitting right here. You know, you go through those steps of licensing to become a funeral director, but also licensing to become an embalmer. There's a lot that has to happen in embalming and restorative art. A lot has to happen when bodies are shipped from here to other parts of the country or other parts of the world. You heard him talk about Israel, or for bodies being shipped to this area. Some special things said on camera. I wish you could have heard the words off camera. The greatest gift he has to offer is comforting families in time of sorrow. In times of sorrow, when folks are oftentimes at their weakest. And of course, he attributes this to his loving family and his relationship with Christ. You heard him talk about his own mother and the thrill of having her down this past weekend and getting up to the Carolina Opry. The love he has with his own mother and his own family passes on to families up and down the Strand, all over the Southeast, really all over the country. Rick Neal, making a difference every day.